Says we're welcome to start early. We're going to take a look. No, not take a look. We're gonna talk about the season of Christmas, right? Something like that. No?
Yeah,
Hello?
no, I think. Well, I mean, so people think that they're in the season of Christmas, but in reality, they're not.
Ooh.
This is not a show and might not even be a connection. Here's Judah and Guest.
Jude and Guest, I'm here with Joshua Blackburn talking about Christmas. It's too early to talk about Christmas. Josh, what is it?
Or is it?
Because I see lights up everywhere. It's not even Thanksgiving. Why aren't you talking about Thanksgiving, Judah and Josh?
That's a good question.
That's probably what we should be talking about. Maybe we talk about it next week. But
Yeah.
if we're around, but so I forget why we brought it up, but we're going to talk about Christmas, and there's a lot to suss out before we get to the actual season. And you said something just now that was intriguing. Are we actually celebrating Christmas? What do you mean?
Well, yeah. I mean, right now, is it Christmas right now?
Oh, well,
For many people,
how do
and this is the hard thing. For many people, that's what it's become. Like,
what?
it's for them, this is Christmas. The season preceding Christmas
Is Christmas.
it is Christmas, not
Hmm.
Christmas itself in the season, what's traditionally referred to as Christmastide in the West.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The 12 days of Christmas, like the ones in the song. This, elongated festival in between Christmas and Epiphany, as it's celebrated in the West. Theophany is what it's referred to in the East. Same event, the baptism of Christ. So,
Well, I think that is that's sort of the crux of what I want to get to is I had a long conversation. You guys can check it out. Maybe I'll find it and post the link here. But with Ford Suze about, so we were talking about cultural appropriation and how how everybody has culturally appropriated this thing called Christmas, and it's not a good thing. We don't see it as a good thing.
I don't. And I think, yeah.
I see Christmas. Christmas can be a good thing. There's good things about Christmas, right?
Well, yes. Absolutely. But I think it's different. And I guess for me, I make the distinction between Christmas as a holy day and this other thing,
right,
that has been appropriated. But I think one thing that might be helpful for us to do is to step back and look at this as an object lesson in culture building. Because
in what?
Culture building.
Okay.
So yes, it's been appropriated, right? But there's also been steps, there's been actions that have built a culture around this event. And it's not fixed, it's dynamic. It changes. In my lifetime, it's changed since I was a child. Like this
How's it changed?
Well, I mean, think about just even in the commercial marketplace. Like the date when Christmas stuff goes out has gotten further and further back.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And it's gone worldwide. Like I had a discussion with one of the guys at church who, for an extended period of his life, was a missionary in Thailand. And when they were initially in Thailand, when they first got there, like Christmas was not a thing. It's a Buddhist country, just not even celebrated.
Yeah.
It is now. This Western commercialized,
Yeah.
marketized, monetized Christmas season is become global.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, and see, that's what we've talked about in the past. What I've talked about in the past is the Christmas Cathedral. I put that as the thumbnail. I made a thumbnail for it because it was a lot of C's. It was like Christmas Cathedral, California College. I can't remember all the things we did, but there is this creeping entity. Ford called it the Leviathan at one point. It's just it's an entity outside of religion, outside of culture. Well, it's not outside of culture. It's growing within the spaces and culture that's taking over. It's a consumerist. It's a monster, right?
It's capitalistic, and I mean, you might not like me when I say this. It is definitely fueled by capitalism. It's consumerist.
What do you mean? Yeah.
So, okay. Capitalism. So what's the central tenet of capitalism?
The essential tenet of capitalism?
Yeah.
Survival.
Make profit for your stakeholders at all costs.
No.
That's capital, bro. That's corporate.
I think that's an evil side of. That's an evil side.
That's
of.
Corporate
That's corporate capitalism for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a difference. Yeah. There's crony capitalism.
Well, crony
capitalism.
Capital, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, like you've got to raise capital.
Yeah.
Okay. Which means you have to make a return for your investors.
Well, I mean, that's assuming there's investors, right?
No, because you can't have capital without investors.
Well, yes, you can. You can have capital without investors.
Nope.
Yeah, you can. You can have the capital that comes in through the consumers.
No, that's income. Truly, that way of doing business is using other people's money to gain an advantage in the marketplace. I'm just throwing it out there. It's a way of doing business. It's not the only way of doing business. So as a private individual,
I hear what you're saying. I think that's what it's become. But capital is a broad term that does not necessarily mean that it's outside of the consumers.
No, see, and that's the thing. I make a distinction between free markets and capitalism.
Okay, say more about that.
In particular, corporate
corporate capitalism.
Because again, corporations, it's about investors. It's about making a return on someone else's investment. That's what corporations owe their stakeholders.
Mm-hmm.
The trouble is that it's entirely based on greed. That's the value.
Corporate capitalism, yeah.
At all costs. So very rarely are the cultural, environmental, human costs evaluated in decision making.
Mm-hmm.
Those are rarely considered, and so that's one of my issues about like what we're seeing now. It's largely fueled by corporations, by multinational corporations. This is a cultural phenomenon that's global in scale. And it can only be global in scale because corporations are global in scale. Nation states are not. Now the church is, but we're in a very unique period of history right now. Where the real bulk of the church is in the global South. And in Asia, the sheer numbers maybe not the influence, maybe not the glitz, maybe not the wealth, but the
Mm.
sheer bodies are outside the United States. They're outside of Western Europe. They're outside of the thought leaders of global culture, and for some reason, like Christmas has been turned into this um,
Well, what is it?
abomination.
Why
Sadly,
about an abomination?
it, yeah, it's hard for me. The sheer level of greed, of avarice. Um, if Jesus would go and kick over the tables and chase out the livestock and upset the money changers because of what was going on in the temple of God, I cannot see how this is much different.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and then
Well,
culturally within Christendom itself, there's a huge loss of identity. There's a loss of understanding. We forgot where we came from, and we've let these things happen because there's not been much resistance to it. There's very
well, how
little.
would we resist? What is the resistance?
Well, you practice Advent. You practice
Do
the winter
you
Lent, Saint Martin's fast, this
Mhm.
preparatory period that's filled. That's an emotional. It's a physical, um, an emotional journey into the longing and the expectation of the coming of the Lord, and
Yeah.
preparing ourselves
Yeah.
to participate in that event.
And one of the problems is the church has gotten away, has gotten sucked in. I think what you're saying is the church has gotten sucked into the consumeristic spirit and
Sure.
practice of um, the Christmas cathedral of this,
The Christmas
of
tabernacle.
yeah, it's the worship of of the feeling of Christmas, of the accoutrement of and
It,
ambiance of this thing, rather than the true theological excitement that created such a great feeling in the first place, right?
well, there's that, but I think even experientially, we've lost an understanding of human nature, um, about how expectation deepens realization. Like
Say more about that. What do you mean?
so unless you prepare for this event,
Hmm.
unless there's this journey of expectation that you go on, the realization of the day of Christmas gets cheapened.
Hmm.
Um, and it
Yeah.
loses sight of the because it's Christmas tide is not just about Christmas, it's about the whole days that extend on beyond it into Epiphany, and even in
Yeah.
the Roman Catholic tradition it extends into, I think, Candlemas, so even like February 2nd. It's an even much longer season. um
Hmm.
and yeah.
We've come as a society, global society, we've come to wallow in, like I said, the accoutrement, uh, uh, the
And it's certain
trappings of Christmas,
correct.
rather than, and it defeats the purpose, is what you're saying. The whole
It
purpose of a Christmas tide is the expectation, right?
well, that expectation is an important part of the process.
Hmm.
um I guess when you're talking about accoutrement, when we talked about unwrapping Christmas, it sort of makes me think like when somebody gave you this amazing gift, and it came in golden, foil wrapping paper, and it was the wrapping paper that you became so enthralled with. Yes, Yeah. But at
Me and
least
you.
they're enthralled with the gift, right?
Yeah.
Um, it's confusing, like the wrapping paper for the gift itself, um, and of course I could probably go on for much longer about the loss of appreciation for the theology of the incarnation, about
Mhm.
how how much of that event changed everything.
Yeah.
Um, you know, the only way to raise us up out of the pit we were in was for God to reach down in the flesh and pull us up.
Mm.
You know, and you know, so I mean, there's also that as well. I think in addition to the ritual, you know, the keeping of time, like the liturgy, the earthbound ways that we remember and celebrate, we've lost those things.
Mm.
And then even more of a tragedy is that we've lost um, a deep appreciation and understanding of what Christmas really means. Like, and the only way I could put this is, like, unless you've sat down and like even just read, some of the church fathers about the on the incarnation,
Mm.
um, that God became man, that man might become God. To just sort of paraphrase Saint Athanasius, like that mode of theology, that mode of understanding of salvation is very absent amongst most modern Christians, and
Mm. Mm.
they were never taught it. Um,
Well,
it's there in Scripture. It's just you got to
and the problem
open
is
your eyes.
the what's it called? The red herring that tends to be keep Christ in Christmas, right? Like
Well,
that,
sure.
it's in itself is such a shallow. Um, I mean, it's the truth. The truth of the statement is, of course, not lost,
It's a
except that
good
it
place to
is
start.
lost. It's a great place to
It's a
start.
great place to
However,
start.
it has become cheapened, I think,
It,
by keep Christ and keep baby Jesus in,
mhm.
keep um
Keep
keep
Christmas cute. Keep Christmas
keep yeah,
innocent.
or keep Christmas,
Romantic.
religious. And I think there is a problem in the idea of keeping it religious, because it loses sight of the real. Like when you say, keep Christ in Christmas, I think what you're saying, the gravity of what you're saying about keep the theology, the deep understanding of what actually happened in Christmas, rather than let's keep it religious. Okay. I think there needs to be, in at least, I'm talking about, for me, there needs to be
Mhm.
a reevaluation and a reorientation in my own heart about my approach to Christmas, and and I think it's really good what you bring up about the expectation, because it really has been appropriated and ruined in a lot of ways, right? Like the commercialization of expectation is an abomination. Ooh,
Well,
right.
but here's my struggle though. Like what's occurred is there is no expectation. By the time that people get to Christmas, they're done.
Hmm.
They're done. They're wore out with it. They've had their fun. They've had their parties. They've exchanged gifts, and they are done with this event, like this season. So there is no expectation. In fact, if there's any expectation about the season, it occurs in September, October, maybe November now, because it's all been pushed back away from the date itself. It's been a smoke screen against reality. You know, I mean, I'll be blunt. I mean, I think it's a prostitution of something sacred.
Yeah.
You know, so I mean, that's why I kind of take a pretty hard, nasty, you know, kind of stance. Yeah, a very stiff, very stiff stance. Where I'm like, no, 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 no. So I mean, my position that's been growing over time has been more of one of resistance.
Mm-hmm.
And
so is it solely about the time frame for you?
Oh no, it's the time frame, it's the spirit of the whole thing. Because again,
Yeah.
it's so we take something, we change what it is, but then we as it gets expanded and pushed away from the date, it's a smoke screen. It's like Jesus is over here, and everything wants you to look this way.
Yeah.
And it's very incremental. It's very subtle, and again, it's a cultural phenomenon that's global and has shifted and changed in my lifetime. You know, in the last, in my memory.
Yeah, well, I mean, and it is something that worries me as we're talking about, as it feels like as a society we talk about self-soothing so much in 2020, like take care of yourself, and something that as counselors
I'm all about people
there's
taking care of themselves
yeah,
appropriately. Yeah.
appropriately, and there is a danger, I think, in focusing on coping mechanisms in a way, the coping mechanisms becoming an end in themselves. And I feel like that's
sure. Yeah.
and I feel like that's what we're doing with Christmas. Oh, let's celebrate Christmas earlier because we're all in pain this year. Like,
Well, or it's more convenient, or we're going to extend the buying season broader. That's what's happened this year.
well, yeah.
That was very strategic. Yeah, no, I hear what you're saying, and I mean personally, like when people talk about self care, I make a really big distinction between routines that people keep and have, like going to, getting enough sleep, drinking enough water, exercising, eating a good diet, getting sunlight, spending time in nature, working on your relationships, doing the things that need to get done, having an active spiritual life, whatever brand of spirit, of faith you have, like just dig into it, man. Dig into it, woman. But that's different than what I call reasonable self-entitlements. I'm going to go have a piece of chocolate cake. Like having a bath and lighting a candle and a piece of chocolate cake, that's not self-care. That's a reasonable self-entitlement. It's okay to have a donut.
I make the distinction between self-care and self-indulgence. Right. I think it's too often, the line is too often blurred.
So,
like, this is self-care. No, that's self-indulgence. I think the biggest difference to me,
I agree with you. Because like reasonable self-entitlement is like that line in between self-care and just hedonism. It's just let's be honest, what it is self-indulgence.
Yeah.
And there might be a place for that, but not every day. And it's certainly not going to be an everyday way of being resilient in life.
Well, see, and that's the key to me. The difference between self-indulgence and self-care is work. When self-indulgence takes very little work. In fact, often is the absence of work.
It could be.
But self-care in most cases, and when I say work, I just mean as little work as intentionality, right? Planning, setting aside a little self-sacrifice, any kind, because progress necessitates work. And I think self care necessitates progress, right?
Or is it a routine that helps undergird Like it helps maintain our ability to work, our ability to be productive. I don't know. I mean, I'm not. I'll use just an example. Like, I love the Christmas season. I do think for me, it's an opportunity. Like, it's a holiday that is preceded by a fast, and it is a holiday in which I enjoy feasting. Like,
Hmm.
it's a time to celebrate. Um, and I like to celebrate in the appropriate time. There's a time and a place for everything. And a part of that is it is bound by meaning. It's
Yeah.
it's bound by these things of culture, the
Mhm.
calendar, um,
Yeah.
these events, the rituals, the liturgy. Yeah, it just that's what helps um, create and maintain meaning.
Yeah.
Um,
That's I think that's something that's an extremely important point that I hadn't thought about when it comes to Christmas is, and it's something being Eastern Orthodox, I think that you understand more than I do, and that is the importance of the things that bind, the things that meaning that give something meaning. The binded in meaning means that it is intentional, that it is repeated, and that it has limitations, which rituals and calendars,
yeah,
these are things that help us see the sacred, right?
they have boundaries, right? I mean, like,
Boundaries, yeah.
there's a place where they begin
Distinction.
and they
They make a
end.
distinction. Yeah.
Mhm. Absolutely, and I think there's an aspect of community and tradition as well. I mean, like, this isn't something that we just made up.
Right.
It wasn't this isn't some this isn't Bonnaroo. This isn't
Right.
Burning Man. This isn't some music festival where we're like, man, we just want to throw a party and it'll be awesome.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
this has been passed down to us. We are entering into um, this space and time that transcends space and time.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, let's see. We have
So,
Scott,
brother
Scott
Scott,
Pinu, Jim Pass, Justin Nepper. Hey, Justin. And Charity Centenary. Hey, Aunt Charity. And we have Jim Pass actually left us, is in the chat. He says, and why does the church ramp it up during the season? Answer: that's when the folks show up with their Christmas giving, money in the offering plates. They're
yeah,
chasing the
I,
buck, just like everybody else.
I yeah,
Interesting.
it is the giving season, I suppose. I appreciate Jim putting church in small c's with hyphens. Um, Thank you, Jim. Um,
Well, we also talked in my previous podcast, the surfing violinist. We talked. Ford talked a lot about the businessification, the business commodification of church,
okay.
and you know, and how it has inevitably become, of course. Well, I mean, large and small has become a place of commerce,
Mm-hmm.
as it is hooked into, it has had to hook into the various streams of commerce, now some more than others, and I'm sure the Eastern Orthodox Church has some. I don't know, what would you say about that?
Um, you know, there are some days where I wish I had more time and money and a passport. Um,
Hmm. And no
to,
COVID
and no COVID.
around it.
I mean, just to see how things are done in other places of the world.
Hmm.
Because I think Ford is certainly highlighting something that's uniquely American.
Interesting. Yeah.
This intersection, because I mean, if you think about it just on a historic scale, I mean, now, and this is only in the modern world do we have parachurch ministries, which
Yeah.
oftentimes are effectively businesses, they're media businesses.
NGOs.
The NGO part, right? Mission organizations that maybe border in between non-government, NGOs and
Not-for-profit organizations too. Yeah. Yeah. I
yeah,
mean,
I
most,
mean,
I mean,
uh, and they're run by boards. They're run just like the corporations run. Um, and then there are churches and church organizations of sorts that are modeled after they're um, they're constituted on the same models. So it
they
gets
have
a
to interact. They have to interact with the same models, right? Like, well, they don't have to, I guess, but
no,
but
no, they don't.
they come they come into contact with the same models.
It was borrowed from the business world.
What's that?
It was borrowed from the business world.
Well, it's not just borrowed. I think it's married to the business world, right? You
Well,
can't pay your bills. You
no,
can't pay your
well,
bills. You can't pay your bills with cash anymore. You just can't.
uh,
I mean, some places you can, but
you
I'm
you
thinking
can pay
about
with a
like
check.
Texas.
I look at things more so from the perspective like structure and organization. There's a lot of how do I explain this? The way that varying denominational church bodies are structured
Yeah.
is implicit to ecclesiology, and so your understanding of the church essentially, what you believe about the nature of the church is going to show itself in how the church is the organization is structured, um, and that so you can play with that one day and compare varying denominational bodies and what they believe about the nature of the church and how things are organizationally structured.
Mm-hmm.
No, I mean you can pay your bills. I guess how would I say this? And
In a tactful manner.
yeah, in a
Is that
tactful manner. So only in America, because it's not just Christians. Okay,
No.
like Americans really like and have created a market for commoditized spirituality, whether it's of a Buddhist nature, whether it's of a Hindu and yogic nature. Yoga studios are just a great example of this American mentality about the commoditization of the sacred.
Yeah.
Whether it's you know regardless of how, in my opinion, like how heretical or how far outside of the Christian understanding it may be, it's all treated the same way.
Yeah.
It's hermetically sealed.
Yeah.
It's got a skew, and it's got a price code on it, right? Like here's your wafer in your juice cup. That's just the beast. I mean, I will appreciate Ford calling it, but that's the belly of the Leviathan.
Yeah.
That's the belly of the beast, man. And it's ubiquitous. It's ubiquitous.
Yeah.
I don't care what brand or stripe of belief, they've got a product for you. They've got a product for you.
It's not specific to only
It's
Christianity.
it's not just our problem. It's
Catholicism.
just a problem. And I don't know. For me, it's difficult because it cheapens. I mean, it's I don't know. I'm not entirely wrapping my head around that.
But something I want to dig deeper into. Jim, going along with what we're saying, Christmas ritual
That
without
is correct.
theological reality is meaningless, and I think that's what we're sort of. No, not sort of. This is directly what we're talking about, and in particular, throwing the strictures and boundaries of what it is to the wind, right? And just sort of it can start whenever, making it an object of our own creation takes away the thing that gave it meaning in the first place.
Well, there's an aspect of our own creation, like in our own families, we can create rituals, events, things that we do, that enhance the expectation. You know, that lead us well into celebrating this momentous occasion, which really is celebrated every day, but this is the one day out of the year where we really just blow it off. We blow the roof off. Same thing with Pascha. I mean, there's a reason why, even though every Sunday, which if you live in a Latin country, you would know is the Lord's Day, it is always been understood traditionally within the Christian world as a tiny Easter, a micro Pascha.
Yeah. It's a day of celebration.
It's a day of celebration, right? It's the Lord's Day. But then one Sunday out of the year, man, we just really go gangbusters.
Do it upright.
We just do it upright.
Yeah.
And again, like traditionally, there is a season of preparation.
Yeah.
For this day where we really just blow the roof off.
Preparation. I think that's a key word there. Preparation. And because we've taken these objects of preparation, I'd call them accoutrement or trap. What did I say? The trappings of, and they've become trappings rather than a sacred preparation.
Well, no, yeah, they're not even close to sacred. So, I mean, what started off as, I think, an innocent thing, like we'll exchange gifts on Christmas morning, has gone to what was a very small thing, leapt out of the day, and just started creeping its way back all the way into mid-October at this point.
Yeah.
And it's gotten just way it's the problem of proportions, I suppose. Like, there's nothing wrong with this. Is my gift giving is good. Jesus says so. Give gifts. Avarice is bad. It'll eat your soul.
But I think the point here is not only is it avarice that's eating it up, but just sort of I'll say the accidental or innocent or more accidental breaking of the structure, the boundary. I think you said boundaries that made it, that gave it meaning.
Sure. And I hear what you're saying.
Just not, and so the theological aspects are important, not just because of some intellectual assent. It's not just a belief system that's being accosted here. As we treat Christmas like a goodie time that makes us feel better, so we want to have it earlier and earlier, we forget that the reasons it makes us feel the reasons it makes us feel good isn't because of the lights. I mean that's part of it, and that's why it's hard to distinguish it, right? But the boundaries, and this is so the reason this is important to me, because it's not just Christmas, it's relationships. I feel like marriage and courtship, dating. There's a lot of things that I've often said.
Oh, the boundaries of like the markers have been removed.
Yeah.
Oh no, oh,
And
they
and that
absolutely
doesn't
have.
just mean, oh, you're bad. That means I'm taking away things that make it good, and
It
give it life and give it meaning.
yes, yes, absolutely. And like these moments of preparation are all for training our affections. Like
Mm,
and when it all just becomes pleasure seeking,
mm,
we never have an opportunity to grow. We never have an opportunity to really stretch ourselves and explore a broader, realm of emotions.
yeah.
Um, like it,
It becomes self-indulgence rather
it,
than any kind of I like to use the word work. People look at work as a
it
pejorative thing, but
no,
it's a good thing. You
it
work
takes
towards
labor.
something.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
build.
You
You
build, you create, right? You
create. Yeah.
struggle. I mean, that's if you go to a gym, you're gonna if to get what get the desired end, you're gonna work.
Right.
There might even be some pain.
Yeah.
Um, but it might also feel good too. So I mean, it becomes much more complex.
Yeah.
Like this waiting for the Lord, this building of expectation, um, this giving up something good for something better.
Hmm.
Um, it
Yes.
there also is a deeper joy here.
Yeah.
And you won't find the deeper joy unless you embrace the struggle.
I think that's the
and
thing
and
that
that's
people
what
don't
people are
understand.
missing out on.
I use I statements. It's what I haven't understood until we started talking about this, because I have been struggling with this, Josh. I've been struggling with, and I had the thought, am I just growing out of it? Am I losing sight because I'm getting older? But I don't think so. I think you're right. I think I have lost sight and lost grasp of the importance of the ritual of it, the sacred little creativity and boundaries that make it that it's like you said, this is a time honored, this is a 1,000-year tradition, that we spread it thin over several months and make it plastic, commodify it,
Mhm.
and
Oh, and
see it
it's
everywhere.
and the bad thing is, it's like what people think of as Christmas is a thin veneer of the reality.
Hmm. Yeah.
Again, I appreciate you sort of you know getting enthralled with the trappings. It literally is mistaking the wrapping paper for the gift itself.
Yes, it is.
And then and because we're so we're kind of disappointed with the wrapping paper, we want to stretch it out even farther, right? Like
Yeah.
just the month of December, that's not enough. Now it was creeping. Like then we went to Black Friday,
Hmm.
and then it started just creeping
Yeah.
past. Like it's the middle of October, and the stuff just shows up, and it's like,
Well, and I have to say,
yeah.
when I first heard now at this point, it's a mantra of, it's 2020.
Mhm.
Let's celebrate Christmas early. Let's enjoy Christmas early because we
Uh-huh.
deserve it,
Uh-huh.
or some kind of self-soothing mantra. But there was something, like, at first I thought, yeah, that makes sense.
Well, we're not.
That's,
Let's cut ourselves some slack.
yeah. However, there was something, a little twinge that well, there's something not right about that. And the more I've thought about it, and especially tonight, the more insidious it is. I see it as insidious and detrimental,
So I mean,
because it hurts the whole. It's yeah. What do you call it? It defeats the purpose.
it yeah, it does. It does defeat the purpose, and in fact, it defeats the purpose a lot. That's what I'm saying. Like it becomes like the smoke
Yeah.
screen where it's like we should be looking over here, but it's like, oh, there's Christmas lights and stuff and parties over here. And that's my biggest frustration is like even people that say that they love Christmas. I love Christmas. It's my favorite time of the year. And then when Christmas is here, they're done. They're
Yeah, and
done
those same people. Well, I won't talk about
very
other people. I'll talk
frequently.
about me. I will say I love Christmas. It's the favorite time of year. But then you get to Christmas. I get to Christmas, and I'm like,
I've been, like my
let's
kids are
get it
like, oh,
over
let's.
with.
I get it. Like I like Christmas music, but I don't want to listen to it from November 15th through December 25th. So that way, when December 25th is here,
Yeah.
I'm done. Like I've heard, it's been played out.
Well, and see, to me, that is a careful distinction that I think the evangelical church, the what you would call the rogue church,
The road trip.
has
The
rogue
the
church
great assembly of Christians.
has lost sight of the importance of ecclesiology in the marriage between a culture and theology.
Yeah,
So that as long as we believe these things, no,
well, okay. I'm
the
just gonna.
way we work them out in liturgy, the way we work them out in our daily lives, is super important to that marriage.
Yeah, and that's the difference between incarnational living and propositional living, right? So yeah, I'll break it
This-
down for you. So here's the difference between traditional Christianity and post and Enlightenment Christianity. Like this notion that the way that I'm a Christian is that I hold that this particular proposition is true. I'm saved because of my correct belief,
yeah,
my strong belief in this particular proposition, which I believe to be true.
right.
Incarnational Christianity says no. It not only is that thing true, but we're going to grab hold of time and space and matter and live that truth.
Yeah.
So I mean, like to sort of again paraphrase something from like the liturgy on Christmas, well, any liturgy in the East, there's very active verbs that are used, like when we celebrate, like in the service, in parts of the services that are essentially movable, so they change with the seasons, they change with the day.
Mm-hmm.
There's a heavy emphasis on today Christ is born, let us glorify him. So like when we worship literally in the now, the eternal now. Even though that moment changes in its focus, it's still boundaried by time, it's boundaried by dates.
Yeah. That time aspect, the calendar aspect.
The calendar is a funny thing.
It is. It's a powerful thing that in the West,
Well, it's
Christians
powerful with people. I mean, I see it clinically all the time. Like personally, outside of the church calendar,
mm-hmm.
I have very few emotional associations with dates. A lot of the people I know have deep emotional associations with dates, like almost self-fulfilling prophecy, kind of like, this is the day when this happened, it's just going to be a bad day. And in the way that structures our lives, though, it has effects, it has deep effects on our lives. It's interesting for me when I watch other people, because I'm like, they don't live within that church calendar, but they have a calendar.
Yeah,
they've got one.
Arnold calendar.
That's related to their lives. Like, to a certain degree, they're asset, and it's not the way I want it to be. I don't live to the fullness of what it is, but I could certainly, to a larger extent, live within this giant year-long celebration of the saints and the angels and the life of Christ and the glorious works of God throughout history, where we remember in the present tense the wonderful acts of God. On a personal level, I know, that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't, in my personal life, like I kind of step into that reality on the church calendar, but I know a lot of people that like they're heavily that it's just we have as human beings. Let me just put it this way: as human beings, there is this attachment to time,
Mhm.
um, and it's just part of who we are.
Yeah.
And,
That would be a
it,
good
and it's
discussion.
good.
Yes, time. Jim Lung
Jim
is
Long,
in the chat. He says, and
if
if Christmas
Christmas
is
is
done
done right,
right,
they just might hear the
someone in that
gospel.
crowd might just hear, and I would say
They
might see the gospel, might experience the gospel. If it is, if it,
they just might. They just might hear the good news of God.
he
Here in
says,
the big city, it's
yeah,
the winter
there
holiday.
is things.
Well,
Christmas is
yeah,
the winter
that's the other.
holiday.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, there's the other. Like, I don't even know if I'd want to use the term cultural appropriation. It's almost like that's hijacking and prostitution.
Yeah.
Christmas has been pimped. If I'm going to use the prostitute metaphor, it's been pimped by some other powers and prostituted out because there are powers who've taken this event and you know yeah I don't like using that metaphor, but it
It's true though, and it. Uh, I mean, even we see it from this administration and stuff using it to manipulate the masses, and because it is a powerful, or it was once, Christmas was once, it isn't as powerful as it once was. There used to be something just splendid about it, and I think it was because it, in the appropriation of it, right? Just like we use Judeo-Christian morals to stop at stoplights.
mm-hmm.
We benefit from Judeo-Christian ideals of morality. In the same way, I think that our world thrived, loved this little thing called Christmas, and were able to glean, even if they didn't fully understand the deep meaning of it, we're able to glean the righteousness from it. And then it became spread out like butter, and then it became commodified and became, and it has become something that, like you said, it has become I cringed at first, but I do believe that it's become an abomination.
Because it's not what it yeah it's not what it is. It's not what people say that it is. Now I think it might be truer to say it's the winter holiday. I don't know
Yeah.
what's holy about it, um,
Hmm.
which is what holiday means.
Yeah.
But there we go. So
Interesting.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm
Well, Jim says
Jim.
pimp is probably the right word,
I wish it wasn't,
and
but I think
Jim says the metaphor works. Josh, don't
I know.
hesitate to
Thanks,
use it.
Jim.
Yeah.
It's just we live in a very. I mean, this is the hard thing. Like, I honestly get righteously indignant, which I rarely do.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
which, if I push just underneath that emotion, it's just sad. Like this is where the state of things are right now.
Hmm.
It should really just make us all be really weepy, and I don't want to say frightened because I don't want
Yeah.
God knows what's going on.
Right.
But it's just sad how far we've kind of gone off the tracks here. I mean, just um,
Yeah. Yeah. And I'll say for me, excuse me. I think that's what I've been experiencing as the holidays have come and gone. Where's the magic? I would say,
where's the
and
magic?
And instead of blaming myself and reaching inward and looking for the things that I had broken, I looked around and, said, well, it's some external force, right? Like blamed, and not that I'm blaming other people. I'm just thinking, oh, it's just, it never was there. It was an illusion, right? It was a childlike illusion. And I think the hope that I'm getting tonight is hope in the fact that it wasn't an illusion.
Oh, I mean,
Some of it was an illusion,
I'll make
but
it personal. Like, I mean, yeah, I think a lot of it was like I look back at what my parents did in an attempt to make Christmas special or exciting, and but it was exciting on the level of like producing the wow on a child's face, and all that really did for me was create expectations about material goods and my own desires,
right.
which created more expectations on my parents to like overdo what they did the year previous. And so like it became this event that created all kinds of strange conflicts within myself and within my family and probably within my parents. I never bothered to quiz them. And then, so for me, it's been this journey away from being raised that way, like that being my experience, into something else that I realized that the more I try to resist the culture, I have to go deeper into tradition. I have to go deeper into imbibing of the calendar and marking out time with there is some intention and wisdom with what's been handed down to us, like this season of preparation before the celebration. And there are lots of ways to do that season of preparation well. And I'll be the first to say, I don't think I'm still working on learning how to do it well. I just know that what's being sold as Christmas is a sham. It's a sham. Like they're selling us a bad bill of goods. It doesn't produce what it promises.
It doesn't. The word magic.
The magic. The
So
magic of Christmas.
This is a thought that I'd like to develop. I mean, we're already almost at the hour mark, but I would like to talk more about magic because as I'm hearing you talk and as we're discussing this, the idea of magic. Maybe I would probably want to use a different word, but let's use magic just to kind of. I just want to
as a placeholder.
As a placeholder, because there is something about magic that is the practical and the spiritual married, right? And I think that is where Christians and what did you call it, the broader the evangelical church, but
the great assembly of Christians.
The great assembly of Christians has developed an allergy to magic, and this is kind of I'd like to. We got to talk more about this, but there is something there that we have lost because, like you said, it's become a propositional. So in our allergic reaction to magic, you're thinking that all magic is witchcraft, right? We've lost the practical aspect, the practical definition of magic, which is.
Well, I think we'll have to figure out a better word than that.
Maybe
magic might be a good placeholder.
That's just your allergy.
Well, no, I mean, what most people that are propositional in nature actually have an aversion to is matter.
Is what?
Matter. The body. The world. The created order. Because we don't know what to do with it. Which is why we're on the cusp of an ecological disaster. And most people, from a psychological perspective, are on the cusp of being in a disaster, um, because we don't know what to do with the body. Western Christians really don't have an understanding of the body,
Yeah.
which is why we're in the, I'm just going to say it this way, which is part of why we're in the mess we're in. Um, because we just don't have a usable, practical understanding of the stuff that God made in human nature. And I mean, I'm just going to throw it out there like that. So,
Well, yeah, because I feel like there has been
because
a
when
huge. Go ahead. Go ahead.
yeah, because when I hear the word magic, I hear attempts to, um, so this is my understanding. This is my practical definition of magic, and you'll see it like it's the use of some kind of technology, be it
Hmm.
verbal or chemical, right? So
Mm-hmm.
potions and spells
Mm-hmm.
to alter matter,
Hmm.
to harness powers. Which, if we're honest, magic is more akin to science than it is to other things. um,
Well, then we lack a proper term
yeah,
then
yeah.
for
I mean, finding the good phrase, the good term for what we're trying to describe.
yeah, and I know that that's what's it's come to be known as, magic. But
The
I really
magic.
appreciate you got to read some Susanna Clark, uh, Doctor. Oh, is it Mr. Norrell and Jonathan Strange? And because it's about magicians, practical magicians, and it's interesting. It's more of a metaphor for how our society has come to treat theology. So at the beginning, there's a bunch of people that are magicians, and they want to keep it all propositional,
Sure.
and they want to keep it all about the books. And Jonathan Strange, comes along, and he believes that it has more to. It's more of an art than a rote,
Okay. Okay.
a
Well,
propositional.
sure. I honestly, I don't like. I've been trying over time to even drop the use of the term theology, um,
Yeah, I get
because
that.
it in proper theology, um, is within the realm of prayer. It's within the realm of experience. I mean, it's one thing if we talk about history, right, or if
Mhm.
we talk about dogma, or doctrine. Like, when people have specific teachings, that's not really like, those are often like people talking about God. That's not God's words or our understanding of God. Like,
Right.
um,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
so
So I feel like, I mean, that may be something that we could work on, is developing some kind of understanding, and maybe put some words together to help. I need a clear way to discuss, the incarnational living out of the gospel, because
sure.
neither of us, and especially you, are not averse to books and reading.
No, no. I mean, and sometimes there's some ironies there about, um, spiritual experience. Yeah, like reading someone who is spiritually experienced writing and saying, this is how it is, but don't be fooled to think that, just because you've read it on, in black and white means that you've experienced it either.
Hmm.
Of course, the irony there is some of those truths I would not have been aware of unless someone, though they are dead, yet they speak through the book,
Yeah.
told me. So, I mean, that's the irony. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, you gave me this hint about the spiritual life, and the warning was also don't think you've experienced it because you read about it. But then I also would not have been aware of what I don't know unless I had read about it. So, it yeah, I'm not averse to propositional truths,
Oh,
and I'm certainly not averse to learning. Um,
right.
but yeah, it's got to manifest itself in time, in space, and blood, and sweat and tears, and it may even have to manifest itself in the scary homeless person that you give alms to. Um,
Yeah.
you, that's where it's got to go. Like I was telling my wife here recently about some. I mean, when we talk about culture wars, this
Yeah.
is how I know we've lost the culture wars. When the culture loves more than we do.
Mm. Mm.
Therein lies a huge indictment. And it's not to say that we sacrifice truth, right? In but if all we do is grimace and yell and be angry and judge and be harsh, um, well, what for what?
Yeah,
well, how true is that? That's not going to get us there.
it's true.
Um,
I agree, and it's a process of learning that it's hard because propositional truth it's it fits so much easier in my brain than in my body.
Well, sure, yeah, it's good for that. It's good for that, and it's also good. It's also kind of here we are, the goldfish in the bowl. Going.
Mm.
The I think the water in our part of the bowl is funny.
Yeah,
Yeah, but
yeah.
it's kind of hard to tell because it's where we've always been. But and that is I think one of the beautiful things about reading is it does get us out of if we read especially older things,
Mm.
it gets us out of the fishbowl we're in. I will, I just so happen to have a handy quote from everyone's, favorite man of the hour. Not necessarily the man, C.S. Lewis.
Okay.
Every age has its own outlook. It's especially good at seeing certain truths and especially liable to make certain mistakes. We
Mm.
all therefore need to keep the clean sea breeze of the centuries blowing through our minds by reading old books. And that comes from his introduction to St. Athanasius' On the Incarnation, which
Wow.
I'll probably pick up and read. I try to read. Some years I have fallen short, but my goal, one of my goals in life, is to read that book every Advent, because it's a solid reminder of the old understanding of the
Mm.
Incarnation. Um,
It's good to know. Saint Athanasius's
on the Incarnation,
on the
and
Incarnation.
if you find an old paperback copy, most of the paperback copies that are floating around also have will have a Lewis's introduction to
Mm.
that book. So back in the 40s, I think, or 30s or 40s, he was invited to write an introduction to an an English translation that was done then to On the Incarnation. And the introduction, Lewis's introduction is brilliant in and of itself. Um,
Interesting.
I don't have a copy handy. Yeah, I need to dig one out.
I'm gonna need to find one. We're gonna do a
They're
little.
cheap. They're easy to find. Thank you, Amazon. Or
Yeah.
some
Should I
other,
use cash?
or some other. You should use, if you can, use cash and buy it from an independent bookseller. Um,
Do those exist?
they do, They're hard to find, but
Yeah. Well, to sum up, I think for me the importance here, and correct me if I'm wrong. Let's get to the meat here, so that we don't leave without something to change about ourselves. But
yeah,
I think for me, just the very point right there of reading something like Saint Athanasius. I can't say it right. Getting reading something old, something that gets back to the understanding, the earlier understanding. It's important for me, not just so I feel fuzzies about Christmas. No,
yeah,
not so that I feel fuzzies, but so that I derive meaning. And that's something that I'm struggling with these days.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, what a better time than Christmas to
Yeah.
not find meaning in my own trappings, that, lights that I can put up make me feel warm and fuzzy, but to follow the steps and um, look at the original steps. What's another word for steps? The rituals of Christmas.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think there's even room to make more. Like, I mean, one of the things I've sort of challenged myself, if I can find, I've been meaning to find time to print it off. If I can't find it, I've got some old hymnals stacked away somewhere.
Hmm.
Like even during this season, just something as simple as every night singing O Come, Emmanuel," um,
But
which is a
I,
traditional Advent hymn.
but when you say this season, I think it's important as a leader in my family to say, like, we're going to wait because we don't want to get cloy with
It,
the brightness. We
well,
don't want to get
yeah,
oversatisfied.
that's true, but I think that can also be overly negative, right? Like there, my struggle now at this point where I realize that, like, okay, I want to go deeper than where I'm at in is because, well, I can rail. I mean, I can rage at the machine, no problem. But raging at the machine is not a replacement for actively going deeper. It's not a replacement for preparation. It's not a replacement for creating expectation. It's not a replacement for reintroducing this older way of doing things in a way that's wise. Whether it's celebrating Saint Nicholas on Saint Nicholas's Day or Saint Lucy, Lucy's Day, where there's candles. I mean, there are traditions that fall within this season. The thing that I'm looking at right now is like how even just for myself as an individual, like O Come, Emmanuel for me it's a mournful hymn. Like even the music itself it's not you know it's very sober. And the words of the hymn are deeply biblical, and they build anticipation. Even the words itself is "Oh come." It's not "You are here." Oh no, Judah left me. Come back, my buddy.